Parashat Achrei B'Shut Rabbi Pearl. Parashat Achrei talks about two topics. Topic number one is... Who has fun on? Topic number one, the Yom Kippur. All of the Avodah of Kohen Gadol in Yom Kippur. Topic number two is Arayot, prohibit relationships. We are learning relationships on Kiddushin, but you're not allowed to have Yichud, you shouldn't come to Arayos, to Arayot. But that's topic number two. So the obvious question is, what's the flow between Yom Kippur to Arayot? That Yom Kippur should not be the time to warn people not to be with the wrong, in the wrong relationships. And also we're reading in the Mincha of Yom Kippur, we're reading the Parasha of the Arayot, all of the prohibit relationship. What's the connection to Yom Kippur? It has nothing to do with it. Especially in Mincha Yom Kippur, you know, if you took a nap, if you done it with Ashkenazim, you didn't sleep. But if you done with Sfaradim, you took a nap and you're tired and you come back and like, you know, this reading of the Torah, it's something that people are not usually local. Yet, what's the connection over here? But all this begins with the introduction of Aaron HaKohen. And Hashem told Aaron HaKohen after his children died, and he said, do not come to the Kodesh whenever you want, Kodesh HaKodesh in the holiness of holiness, unless on Yom Kippur, when you bring Korban Chatat and Korban Olah, that's the time to enter Kodesh HaKodeshim. So again, we have the introduction for Yom Kippur begins with Aaron HaKohen learning that his children died and he shouldn't do the same. What is Yom Kippur? It's a better day for the remedy for what happened with the children of Aaron. For that concern, Yom Kippur is the resolution. So why is Yom Kippur the resolution to enter into Kodesh HaKodeshim, where all year round we don't have that special qualification? The real question, begins. Rashi said, why did Hashem told Aharon, don't go to the Kodesh? Because he said, Achrei mot shnei bnei Aaron. After the children of Aaron died, Hashem said, don't go el HaKodesh. So why so? He mentioned after the children died. So Rashi brings a mashal. And when a doctor told somebody, a sick person came to a doctor, and he told them, by the way, don't eat cold, and don't sleep in wet, cold places. Lama, you're gonna be worse. So would he listen to him? But the other doctor told them, don't eat cold, don't sleep in wet, cold places, and you shouldn't die like the other person died. In such a case, he listened to him much better. Therefore, when Hashem told Aaron HaKohen, don't enter to Kodesh HaKodeshim, the holiness of holiness, he didn't say it clear, don't enter. He mentioned to give the warning to be very clear, just like your children enter and they died, make sure do not enter and not to die. But I have a big issue. This mashal and the nimshal, and that's supposed to represent Aaron HaKohen. Let's put the fact. Can you close the door? So, Rofeh, who is the Rofeh? Comparing it to our case. Who is the Rofeh? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem. Who is the sick person? Aaron. Who are the previous people? His kids. So number one, I understand why Hashem is a Rofeh. I don't get why Aaron is sick. You're making Aaron to be sick. He's not sick. He's healthy. It doesn't, seemingly. Number two, when do you need to give warning to compare to somebody else? When you don't know that fellow. In our case, did Aaron know his children? For sure. I think in this case it was not obvious. You know, they had PTSD. Can you imagine somebody, his children died because of something, you think he's going to take a chance? Why is Hashem needs to warn Aaron? How can we compare it to a random person, to compare it to a people he didn't know died, when it's his own children? There is no reason to compare whatsoever. Interesting also that we compare, if we compare the mashal, so what Bnei Aaron did wrong? Ezra. What's the comparison to here? They were in cold, they drank cold, and they slept in the cold place. That's the parallel, that's the mashal of Bnei Aaron. So again, why would Bnei Aaron bring a korban to Hashem, and we'll see it in a second, consider sleeping in a cold place and drinking and eating cold and drinking and sleeping in a cold place? What's the comparison between the mashal and the mishnah? throughout the story. There are more questions over here, but I want to start to go. Let's go over there. So the story of Bnei Aaron back then was an interesting story. So it says in the Torah, in Parasha Shmini, that Aaron, Nadav Avihu, each one took his own pen, his own machtat. They put Ktoret on it in order to bring it to Hashem. And it says, "Ve'yakrivu lifnei Hashem esh zoro, strange fire, asher lo tziva Hashem," that Hashem never commit them to bring. So if it's esh zoro, asher lo tziva Hashem, isn't that a double description? If it's just zoro, obviously it's lo tziva Hashem. What's the reason this is just zoro? Because Hashem didn't command them to bring it. So the Torah repeats itself by saying that they brought a strange fire which Hashem didn't commit. Okay. We're going back. ותצא אש מלפני השם ותאכל אותם. A fire came from Hashem and he ate them. וימותו לפני השם. They died in front of Hashem. So Moshe came to Aaron HaKohen and he said, הוא השם, דיבר השם לאמור, בקרוב ויקדש ועל פני כל העם מכבד וידע אהרון. This is what Hashem said, that is going to be Mekadesh Beis HaMikdash with people who are holy. So the Gemara brings that Aaron said to Moshe, I thought that Hashem will be Mekadesh Beis HaMikdash with you and I saw Hashem Mekadesh Beis HaMikdash with your children. Eventually they are on a higher level than you and I. But that doesn't make sense over here. Rabbi said, they did something wrong, they got a punishment. Is that the way to make Hashem Kodesh? The Yerushalmi brings that we're learning, just like Bnei Aaron died, so too by Yom Kippur, just like Yom Kippur mechaper, if tzaddikim died, it's also giving kaparat to Am Yisrael. Why? Because the Parasha of Bnei Aaron, reading now in our Parasha, next to Yom Kippur. But they got punishments. How can you make a holy event for people who get punishment? It doesn't make sense, Bechlal. So then the Torah says, Vayido im Aaron. Aaron was silent. He didn't respond to anything. So the Gemara says that it was a special thing. Aaron HaKohen, you silence, you didn't say anything, he got a special reward. It was a special parasha that we're giving to him in the Torah, the parasha of Shtuyei Yain. People who are drunk not allowed to walk inside of Beis HaMikdash. As a reward for Aaron being silent, he got this special parasha as a gift. And it was said to him direct from Hashem to Aaron HaKohen. But what's going on over here? Aaron vayidom Aaron. Why Aaron wouldn't be silent? Aaron knows Hashem. He spoke to Hashem, nachon? And he knows everything Hashem does is the right thing. They did something wrong, they got a punishment. What's the greatness of Idom Aaron? You know how many Jews in Eretz Yisrael, in Am Yisrael, when tragedy happened to them, they were mekabel, they didn't be'ahavo, this is what Hashem said, they didn't get any reward. What's significant about Aaron HaKohen? Understanding that Hashem runs the world. That's something you're giving to Aaron. You're giving reward to somebody who acts beyond the normal behavior. For Aaron, it's normal. If you know Hashem runs the world, it's normal. But the biggest question is, what's the connection between the reward to the action that he did? What was the action?
He didn't say anything.
He didn't say anything. The reward, people who are drunk, not allowed to enter Beis HaMikdash. So it's true that there were one of the 5 sins that they did was that they were drunk. But that has nothing to do with him being silent. Being silent is supposed to get something, a reward which related to being silent, not reward that remind them the sin of his children. It doesn't flow b'chad. I mean, this is the worst reward ever. I give a reward, Parasha, special mitzvah, this is why your children died, that's your reward. What's the flow? What's going on? So
is that a reward to have a parsha named after you?
What?
Just thinking, is that a reward?
No, not after him. Hashem spoke to him direct. That was the reward. Hashem gave them that. So in order to understand, the Gemara brings there were 5 reasons what were the sin of Bnei Aaron. Number 1, they were drunk. We mentioned it. Number 2, the Moira Aloche Bifnei Rabbam. They gave halacha in front of the Rabbi. Number 3, they weren't married. Number 4, they didn't have children. Number 5, puer roish. They had long hair, they didn't take an haircut, they saved some money. So there were 5 sins. So what was the sin? What really happened in Bnei Aaron? What's the sin? What they're being accused for? And what the message to us? So I was thinking of the following. We all think in a certain level of ourselves. Most of us, many of us, either things below of who we are or above who we are. We barely know exactly who we are. You know, many people can tell you, you know, the rabbi, you don't know me. I don't like to answer back to people. The fact that you don't know yourself doesn't mean I don't know you. You think, you know, people know you much more than you know yourself. Why people don't know yourself? A lot of time, people are fooling themselves to be either on a high level, and sometimes they're fooling themselves to be on a lower level. Either way, you're doing bad in life. Because if you're not aligned with who you are, your performing is not correctly. If you think better of who you are, that's dangerous. And if you think below who you are, you're wasting your power instead of performing and doing right in life. It says that the children of Bnei Aaron, they were greater than Moshe Rabbeinu. That's giving, nachon? Moshe Rabbeinu says, I thought that we're going to die for Beis HaMikdash, but I see they died. They're greater than you and I. The Gemara says that when Moshe and Aaron were walking, and Nadav Avihu were walking behind them. Nadav says to Avihu, Matai yamutu shne zkenim alalu, when those two old guys going to die, ve'ata ve'ani nanhig et hador, and you and I will lead the generation. So that's, in a way, that's arrogance, nachon? I want to ask you, Nadav and Avihu, I can understand why you want Moshe to die, for you to lead the generation. But you want your father to die? Basically, he said the two old guys are Moshe and Aaron. So they have a wish, they want their father to die in order to lead the generation. That's an unbelievable understanding. Like, people want the father to die in order to be the leaders. What's going on? Nadav and Avihu, let's say Moshe and Aaron were in level 7, okay? Not making up number, okay? So I'm not putting them down. They were in level 7. Nadav and Avihu were above them. So let's say number 8. The problem of Nadav and Avihu, they were thinking of themselves as number 9. Meaning who they were actually greater than Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron. But who they thought they were more than who they were, which is number 9. So the Torah bring, unbelievable what happened over here. What's the whole purpose of bringing a korban to Hashem? Why are you bringing a korban? Korban, the Gemara says that korban is a replacement of you. Instead of me bringing myself as a korban, so at the time of Beis HaMikdash, when a shchita, somebody is supposed to think as if I deserve shchita. All of the pulot, all of the work in the animal, you should imagine that it was supposed to be done to yourself. Don't do it now, but that was in the time of Beis HaMikdash. So which means the korban is a replacement of me. In order for the korban to be a replacement of me, you need to have a kavanah of the korban of you. If you have a kavanah to bring a korban for somebody else, it's not a replacement of you. The only way it can be a replacement of you is by have kavanah for you. Aaron and Nadav and Avihu, they brought a ktoret in them to Kodesh HaKodoshim. There is no way in the world, and it's Machleket Rishonim, that they did something wrong. Talking about the high tzaddikim, they're going to do a sin? Impossible. What was the problem? Their kavanah on the actual korban was what number was their kavanah on the korban? Number 9, because they thought they were 9. But actually they were how much? They were level 8. So when they brought the korban ktoret into Hashem, they bring it inside, and the ktoret is supposed to be the replacement of them. The problem is that ktoret couldn't replace them. Lama? Because the ktoret was number 9. They were number 8. So that's why it was Eish Zoro. What's Zoro? Strange. What strange means? It's not them. That's the reason Asher lo tziva Hashem. It's not that Hashem told them not to bring a korban. They're not going to be over Aloha and Shulchan Aruch. Just they saw the bringing a korban their level with their mind of 9. In reality, it was 8. So this korban was strange to them. So therefore, we have a double language. Zara, strange fire. Asher lo tziva Hashem, that Hashem didn't commit it. So what's the solution on such a case, Ben? They're supposed to have a replacement, and there is no replacement. ותצא אש מלפני השם ותאכל אותם. A fire came and took them as a korban. Since the replacement could not be a korban, they themselves became as a korban. Now we can understand the 5 sins that they had. No wife, no children, drunk, halacha in front of the Rabbi, and Puer Rosh. It wasn't the sins. Make up your mind, what was the problem? It was the symptoms of their sin. People are thinking highly of themselves. Number 1, if you're married, you know very well who you are. Your wife puts you on the right place. If you have children, that's a deeper level. Even if you're not married, but children, I spoke with my mother this morning about my brother who has problem with one of the children. I'm like, Ima, he needs to wake up, he's the problem. You know, that's usually, we are the problem. When we have problem with our children, it's us. So you try to get people to help, nobody can help. Like, of course, because it's you. Hashem gave you a child, Hashem gave you usually a normal child. If something goes wrong, it's you. I mean, the child cannot blame the parents because Hashem didn't make parents perfect, but it's about, when you have children, you know, you get to know who you are, you think properly of yourself, you don't fly who you are. Weiter, people have long hair. What's long hair means? Thinking highly of themselves. Although, you know, see guys with the interesting why, I don't know why, but people, they want to feel more than who they are. Woman has long hair. Being drunk, obviously if you're drunk, you think highly of more than who you are. And lastly, say halacha in front of your Rabbi. And that's something very important. What makes you humble? Humble means knowing who you are. If you understand that somebody is above you, then you can understand who you are, because you take authority for somebody else. But if you think you know everything, and there is no Rabbi above you, then you're not really in touch with reality. Somebody who said halacha in front of the Rabbi, that's the highest symptoms that Rabbi is talking, meaning you know, you think you're better than your Rabbi. If you don't give Rabbi a space to be your Rabbi, that title, then automatically you are too highly of yourself. Those were the total 5 symptoms of the children of Bnei Aharon. Come Moshe Rabbeinu and said to Aaron HaKohen, Aaron, I thought that your children will be, I thought that Beis HaMikdash will be Kadosh through you and I. Now I see that Beis HaMikdash will become Kadosh through your children. And the words, the final words of Rashi, Shehem Gdolim Mimeni Vemimcha. Where am I? הוא אשר אומר קרובי יקדש ועל פני כל העם מכבד. עכשיו אני רואה שהם גדולים ממני וממך. And on the statement of Moshe Rabbeinu, that's saying that your children are higher level than you and I, on that it says Vayidoim Aharon. So what was Aaron's silence? Everybody read that he was silent for the event of the death of his children. If so, that's supposed to be written after the pasuk that they died. But it's not written out of the pasuk they died. It's written out of the pasuk that Moshe told Aaron, now I understand they're greater than you and I. Meaning, what was the difference between Moshe and Aaron? Moshe Rabbeinu, we have a declaration that he was the most humble guy ever. It's by the story when Miriam and Aaron spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe Rabbeinu, we see over there that Hashem declared that Moshe Rabbeinu is the most humble guy ever. We said last Shabbos that somebody who speaks Lashon Hara, what's the reason that they get a punishment of tzarat? Because somebody who speaks Lashon Hara is thinking he's not aware to his faults, to the low area of his life. What's the motivation of me talking Lashon Hara? If I'm comfortable with who I am, I have no need to talk Lashon Hara. It's disgusting. Why am I talking Lashon Hara? Because I'm not comfortable with who I am. So what most people do when they want to say Lashon Hara? No, it's not Lashon Hara, it's okay, it's letoelet. We bring all of the excuses that is not Lashon Hara. Lama? Because we are not aware for the motivation of talking Lashon Hara. If you are in touch with yourself and you understand you have low area and everybody have low and I, then you understand that the need to talk Lashon Hara comes from the low area. If so, you will be aware not to talk Lashon Hara. I know why I need to talk Lashon Hara because I'm insecure about myself and I want to put the other person down and I want to hear Lashon Hara that people are less than me, then you can fight it. But if you're not aware of it, then you have a big issue. Because you think you're fine, and you're not aware what motivates you to Lashon Hara, and you're giving excuses that this Lashon Hara it's fine. So, Chas v'shalom, we might talk about Aaron HaKohen, but we see in the event when Aaron and Miriam spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe, that Aaron has the issue of talking Lashon Hara. That means Miriam and Aaron about Moshe. Yeah, but both of them got. He spoke to her. Miriam spoke to Aaron, and Aaron was Mekabel. If Aaron was willing to listen Lashon Hara about Moshe, that means that Aaron is not as secure about himself. For Moshe Rabbeinu to understand now, what being humble, anava, means you're comfortable with who you are. You don't need any recognition. And arrogance, gaiva, you're not comfortable with who you are, and you need to create recognition for who you are. That's why you see people pushing to get special aliyah in shul. By the way, everybody has it, to be honest. We all want to be recognized, you know. If if you think you deserve in a better place and you're not there, everybody feels. My father always used to say, the whole world wants a bissel kavod, give it for free. You know, people need kavod. That's what we live at because we are not perfect. But to the level of Aaron HaKohen and Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe was the most humble guy. That means he had full self-esteem. He doesn't need anybody to recognize him to be comfortable with who he was. Aaron didn't have it because Hashem declared it only Moshe and Aaron. When Moshe Rabbeinu said that they are greater than you and I, that wasn't special for Moshe Rabbeinu because Moshe Rabbeinu knew his level, his dargah, and he was fine with it. But for Aaron, it was something special. If Aaron heard that his children are greater than him, and Aaron is accepting it, means what? That's a special level. I accept who I am, knowing that my children greater than me. Vayidom Aaron, he was silenced on the message that people, are greater than him, and he was comfortable with who he was. Therefore, what was the reward of Aaron? He got the parasha of Shtuye Yain. Somebody who drank wine and not allowed to go to Beis Hamikdash. Why somebody who drank wine not allowed to go to Beis Hamikdash? Because when you serve in Beis Hamikdash, you got to know who you are. If you think too highly of yourself, you cannot serve in Beis Hamikdash. That's what the exact reward for Aaron HaKohen. Aaron HaKohen knew who he was, and therefore the reward for him was somebody who drunk, who doesn't know who he is, he cannot go to Beis Hamikdash. That's the story here. Going to our Parsha, when Aaron HaKohen getting a warning from Hashem about his children, so we ask, the doctor is Hashem, not to eat cold and drink, not to eat cold and sleep on the wet, cold places. It's the sins of the children of Aaron. Why? So, based on what we just said, what was the sin of Aisha Aaron? You're thinking highly of yourself more than who you are. Why is that compared to eating cold and drink and sleeping on a cold place? What's the motivation? Why is somebody eating cold and sleeping on a cold place if he's sick? When we get a instruction from the doctor, and we said, don't worry, Beseda. The doctor said you have to take those pills. No, it's fine, it's okay. The doctor says I have to do something. No, it's okay. How do we justify not to follow doctor instructions? Who knows better, doctor or us? Hopefully the doctor, נכון? So how come we don't follow doctor instructions? Because when a doctor declares that I'm sick, the only way for me not to follow the doctor instruction is by saying, I'm not really sick. If you agree that you are sick, you won't be able to, you can say not to follow doctor instruction, you're sick. But if you understand, the only way not to listen to him is like saying to yourself, no, I'm not really sick, and therefore it's okay. When people sleeping, eating cold, a sick person who eating cold and sleeping in a cold weather, it's only because he thinks he's not sick. The problem of not of an aviu, they thought that they are not sick. In order for you to understand that not to get into, you have to accept the reality. I think that's the word. You have to accept the reality of who you are in order for you to deal with the surrounding. Anybody willing to drink cold and one day, and all of us, at least myself, sometimes, I see you have instructions. No, beseder, let me do it different. Alama. Why older people follow instructions of doctor and younger not? Because younger think they not agree with the definition of the doctor, and older people with life, they know, okay, he's right, I've been through life, let me follow his instructions. That's the only difference. When the older you are, you have the ability to know who yourself and to know that you don't know. The younger you are, you think you know better than your surrounding, and that's obvious to everybody. So therefore, says Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem said to Aaron HaKohen, don't do like your children. We ask, why do we need Aaron to be warned not to do like his children? Anybody that something happened to his children, you don't need to tell them not to do like them. We understand that Aaron HaKohen has a certain issue with this topic of understanding who he was. If Aaron HaKohen has an issue with this topic, it's not, the issue over here, it's not to be careful from the behavior. Meaning, the issue of a person who's sick, not to eat cold and not to sleep on a cold place, the issue that it's not that he wants to eat cold. The issue is that he thinks he's not sick. Pay attention, meaning it's a very fine line. If you think you're not, the issue here, if you're not sick, you're going to do that. If you admit you're sick, what you're going to do? You're going to follow the doctor's instructions. So Aaron HaKohen can see his kids dying because of a problem, but he can live his life by an understanding, no, I'm different than my kids. I'm not sick like they were sick. Therefore, the Torah treat the children of Aaron as strangers. Because we had thought that they got punishment of what they did, but with the way we explain now, it's not about the punishment of what they did, it's the state of mind. They didn't know who they are. Aaron HaKohen can fool himself to think, I know him. I have no problem with my kids. That's why the Torah says I need to bring the proof to remind again Aaron HaKohen, the same issue they had, you might have it again. It's a little bit scary to say, but the Gemara says in Yerushalmi in Shkolim that the rest of the children of Bnei Aaron were supposed to die also. He said, "Et Bnei Aaron anotarim," the remaining Bnei Aaron. So the Gemara says in Yerushalmi that even the other children of Aaron were supposed to die. Just Hashem had rachamim on them, they didn't die. So only Nadav and Avihu died, but Itamar and Elazar and Itamar didn't die. How come 4 of the children of the same man died? That's unfortunately something they're growing over there. I want to say, I'm afraid to say, but I'm presenting it as an option. Aaron HaKohen was known to be Ish Shalom. The Gemara says, how did he do Shalom? He comes to Reuven, he said, Reuven, Shimon feels so bad he didn't talk to you. Shimon, he goes to Shimon, Reuven feels so bad he's not talking to you. If you think about the action of Aaron HaKohen, it's a chutzpah what you do. Basically, you're making up information that you never received. And you're telling people different stuff. How can you do such a thing? It's a sheker, nachon? Must be. Aaron telling Reuven, I know better than you. In his mind. Reuven doesn't know what's good. I know better than Reuven. The way to make shalom, by the way, I saw that, a little bit experience, shalom bayit, there are 2 people who make shalom bayit. One type is like people who listen to the couple and understand them. And they get to do shalom bayit, which is very rare. The other type is people who are manipulating the couples. They are the easiest way to do shalom bayit. He's telling her what she wants to hear, he's telling him what she wants to hear, and he's cleaning some information. Being a manipulator, it's a gaiva. Meaning you're playing with people. But that's the way you get a resolution of shalom. If you're telling them the truth and you listen to both of them, it's very hard to make shalom bayit. You got to play it around. I have often in my office when I hear the couples, usually I'm sending one of them out. I shouldn't hear and then I'm talking to the other one, and then that one. That's really coming from there is a place of gaivo. Because you're playing with people's heads, with facts that you assume to be right. That was the job of Aaron HaKohen. Ohev Shalom, it was part of that. What's the remedy of Aaron HaKohen? Aaron HaKohen.
Are you saying he's 1 or he's 2? Meaning, was he manipulating or he was...
He was manipulating. He was doing Shalom, and the Gemara says very clear was manipulating. So in order to do Shalom, you have to manipulate many times. So it's true it's not manipulation, because this is what's going on, but in underlining manipulation, I had a story of a couple, they had a big issue between both of them. It was happened last week. And I was talking to the husband, and I was telling him that what she said, the way he approached her, what she said, that telling her she's wrong, it's not the right way of doing it. He said, yeah, I told them she's right on her perspective. So you have to tell them, you have to tell her that she's right, because on her perspective, she's right. After you acknowledge she's right, then present to her your way as something that bothers you. Look, you're right, but for me, like a Gemara, so let's say she didn't want him to learn Gemara, and he wants to. So argue with a wife, no, you're wrong. Gemara is the most important thing in life. What are you talking about? Doesn't work. You can't put her to be wrong. So I told him, you have to tell her, I understand. You're right that I shouldn't learn Gemara. I'm going to be too busy. I'm not going to be part of the house. I agree with her concern because on her place, she's right. Then tell her, but look, it's going to make me feel much better. Not that you are wrong, just for me. We talk about this concept many times, but it's got to be repeated. Because when it comes to actual, you don't do it. So it was big fight. I gave an example of a Gemara, Baruch Hashem, that's an easier example. I got a call from his parents. He said, Rabbi, I'm sorry, but he needs to be straight with her. He needs to tell her you are wrong. So I told him, I told him nicely. She said, Rabbi, this is politics, manipulation. You got to say the truth. I told him, no, you're manipulating. Because if you're trying for him to enforce his truth on her, he's manipulating her to make it true. He said the true MS is to agree with what she feels, because that's a fact. You cannot disagree on woman feeling. Agree with her to her place, and then present your side. But people looking at it from another direction as manipulation. So in our Parsha, the Torah says, Hashem told Aaron HaKohen, you cannot approach to the Kodesh whenever you want. By the way, it means that Aaron has if Hashem needs to say to Aaron, that means Aaron has an urge to go whenever he wants. That's why Hashem needs to limit him. What's the time to go? Whenever you want. What's Yom Kippur? What's the job of Aaron HaKohen on Yom Kippur? If you want to go to Kodesh or Kodashim for yourself, you are at risk. If you're taking care of yourself, you never know if you align with who you are or not. You might be above yourself. Yom Kippur, it's a time that Kohen Gadol, it's all taking care about others. If you are there for others, you have an ability to go back and to connect to yourself. If you're there only for yourself, guarantee you're not connected to yourself. How do we see? One of the minhagim used to be on Purim that the girls used to go out to the vineyard and dancing, and the boys used to do shidduchim. That's my proof that tefillah shouldn't be all day. They had time for 2-3 hours for that, so it got to be. So they went to the Kramim, the vineyard. The girl danced, and the boys picked up the girls. What's wrong in Yom Kippur? That's the time to do it. What's the biggest issue of shidduchim? You don't know who you are. That's the whole issue of shidduchim. You're sitting with a woman, a boy sitting with a girl, the girl sitting with a man. She doesn't want him. Why? I spoke with my sister this morning. She's older, 37. She's not married, and she was doing a project, and she was back and forth in the project how to do it. And she told me I realized my mistake. I wasn't clear what I want from the project. Therefore, the designers couldn't follow up with me because I changed my mind every time. When I was clear what I want, it was very easy to find out. And then she said to me, maybe I'm not clear what I want on a shidduch. And that's the reason I have a hard time finding a shidduch. I need to define what I want. Because when you go on a date and you don't know what you want, I want a good girl. Shkoyach, what's a good girl means? Good girl to you cannot be good to somebody else, and vice versa. The biggest issue of shidduchim, people don't know what they want. Why they don't know what they want? Because they don't know who they are. If you know who you are, you have much easier time on shidduchim. You know yourself, you're comfortable with who you are. A lot of people want girl for shidduchim just to show outside. You see what a girl that I got? So in the trophy wife. I want to show it off. Not even beauty as well. Beauty is the biggest issue, but as well, people need to show off with certain qualities outside, and it's not you. It's not about you. When you connect, when you're there for yourself. So what's going on Yom Kippur? It's a time that we are out of ourselves. That's the only way we can go back to ourselves and to understand who we are. As we see the all symptoms of Kohen Gadol, Those symptoms of Nodo Da'aviu, the 5 symptoms is they weren't who they are because they are with surrounding. Drinking, you're not with your surrounding. Wife, you're not with your surrounding. Children, you're not with your surrounding. Halacha in front of the Rebbe, you're not in touch with your surrounding. The only way for you to go back to yourself, to connect to yourself, is number one, to go over to the surrounding. But that's something very important. How do you go outside to your surrounding? There are 2 ways that as well. People can go outside and take care of others from a place they feel on a high level. I'm taking care of other people. Then you miss the point. When Aaron HaKohen, the way he entered to Beis HaMikdash to take care of others, number one, he brought Par Lechata, the Torah says, Ve'ayil Le'ola. First, you have to understand that you false. Understand the problems of who you are. Then you go to others. You're being open for others, and then you can connect back to yourself. I think this is relevant to all of us on a day-to-day because in one end, we're all trying to strive for excellence. It's good. We have to think highly of yourself. But on the other end, you got to be aware of the faults. And sometimes we are way too early of ourselves. So there are 2 issues. Number one, be aware of your faults. But number 2, even when you think you are, make sure it's really your reality. Many, many times people are not aligned. But what I saw, I think, Rabbi, tell me if I'm right, people who are thinking too highly of themselves, they are the people who have a lot of faults that they are not aware of. If you are aware of yourself, you're going to be more confident to think properly of yourself. If you're not aware of yourself, your self-confidence is low, and you're thinking way too highly of yourself. So our job as people, B'nai Torah, is to create that awareness. Understand who you are. Make sure you're not too high, and obviously you're not too low. But have the basis of your faults. Talk about it. Don't try to hide it to those who are married. Don't hide it from your wife. I don't want to talk about the negative stuff. She knows it better than you. If you don't know yourself, doesn't mean she doesn't know you. My father always used to say, he said on somebody, my father was like, every word that came out of him was mamish emes. I never heard him saying a word that is not 100% accurate. He could, we always were joking between our siblings that my father will never get tzachar in Shamayim from being ish emet. He couldn't talk sheker. I can talk sheker, so I get tzachar, I talk emet. But he couldn't, he couldn't give any false compliment to anybody in any form. So once he told somebody, he says, this was a family relative, who malach? So I'm like, wow, Abba, if my father says malach, that means he's malach. My father wouldn't say stam shu malach. He would have said, okay, he's a nice guy. He was so meticulous, it was scary. He couldn't, sometimes my mother made food and he didn't really like it. So we've been trained in Shlom Bayit to say, very good. He didn't come out of his mouth. Lo oved. Mamesh. So he said malach, so it got to be malach. So Merli, Gemara אומרת that the only person who knows a man is his wife. שמעתי שאשתו, I heard that his wife said about him שהוא malach. That means הוא malach. Because she's the one who can really, the only one who really define them. That's what define reality. So really, the wife really knows. But be open about the faults of you. Be comfortable with them. We have to understand that we build with faults. We are not perfect. Bezrat Hashem, those are not married. You're going to be married soon. You're going to see how much you're not perfect. And it's open more and more and more. And that's the beauty of what we are. If we are perfect, we're not going to be here. I always telling my kids, Bezrat Hashem, we try our best. We'll sponsor psychologists after when you're ready for it. And because, this is they think I'm a perfect parent. I'm not. My kids, we're going to need help. We're going to give the proper help. Nobody gave us instruction how to raise kids. But that's part of the beauty of the world. That's why we don't do the mistakes of our parents. But we do the mistake of our grandparents.
How is it related to the forbidden relationships?
So forbidden relationships you can hear only when the need of forbidden relationship is if you're not attached with yourself. When you attach yourself, you can understand why it's not good for you. But that's the pshat on forbidden relationships.